absolute pleasure of supporting, and I absolutely consider a friend. Blessing Day, she's the founder of Aphrodis Food Education, and tomorrow she's launching her new business out in Canada, which is egg bunnies. Yeah, right, there we go. So come on up, Blessings. It's our pleasure to have you. Thank you very much. A big round of applause, everyone.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Eric and Paula and Jen and everybody who's been able to invite me up here today. I'm so excited to meet all of you and to get chatting and to get to learn about you all. Like Eric said, my name is Blessing Day. I'm the CEO and founder of Aphrodis Food and Education Incorporated, and also the CEO of Egg Bunny Bistro, which is launching in Canada tomorrow. Yeah, on 390 March Road, so that's really exciting. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the great thing about entrepreneurship that I love so much is that we get to meet so many new and diverse people. So I'm going to ask y'all to do something that's going to be really uncomfortable, but I like to make people uncomfortable because that's what I do. Please stand up and go around the room and talk to 3 different people and learn something interesting about them and their name. You have 2 minutes to go. Somebody new who's not next to you. Thank you so very much. So here's the greatest thing about entrepreneurship. Y'all just did something that is literally the first step, and that's talking to people. The one thing that I'm actually good at, in school, I was never really good at math. I was not really good at science. The only thing I was kind of good at was talking to people. So I was the kid that sat next to my teacher all the way from grade 2 to grade 9 because I was called a distraction to the class. That was me, yeah, because I talk so much. But I use that to my advantage. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about me. Aphrodis, what we do is we take different foods from across the Pan-African diaspora. I'm of Nigerian descent. My mom's from Nigeria. My father's from African-American from the U.S. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. So go USA. Don't kill me because I know you're all Canadians, please. But yeah, and I moved to Canada when I was in my preteens, teenager kind of phase, so 12, 13, and got to meet a bunch of new cool people. The great thing about Nigerian food that I loved is it was so flavorful and had all this culture, and I know many of you are immigrants or are descendants of immigrant parents, and you have all these things that you want to share with people, but the biggest issue that I had moving here in the 2010s was my friends didn't want to try my food. My Canadian friends in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which if you can imagine I was like the only black girl within like an 100-mile radius. It was quite hard. But my friends didn't want to try my food because I would always get it's fishy bless, or it tastes weird, or it looks weird, it's off. And I had to ask myself a question. I asked myself, how do I get my friends to try this food? Well, I could give it to them in a form that's more familiar to them. So I started changing my cultural food, incorporating those flavors into burgers and wraps and burritos, which is fusion food, which everybody knows. You think of the Panda Express. I guess we don't have Panda Express here, but like fast food, Chinese is not actual Chinese food. It's fusion. Thai Express is Thai food, but it's fusion. So I said, why do we as black people not have that? So launched Aphrodis, started off downtown. Actually, I started off on Preston Street. Was running it as like a, what's the word? Kind of like skip the dishes, Uber Eats ghost kitchen for a little while. But I was really having a hard time picking up steam because the one thing that I did not do was I didn't talk to people. And that's why I made y'all walk around the room and talk to each other, because I'm someone who's really stubborn and I really get in my own way sometimes, thinking I know it all when I was in retrospect, I was like 19 and had no idea what I was doing, and I should have asked somebody, what do you know, or who do you know? All of you just spent time talking to somebody who knows something that you don't. And that thing that they might know that you don't is something that could launch you forward. So with that, left Preston Street, picked myself back up, and I said, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go downtown. At the time, I was a student at U Ottawa, and I had started this business while I was in my second year of university, or first year in university, going to my second year. And I started working in a club and selling my food in a club. Once again, I hit a wall. It was like I just could not get people to try this food. It was like getting people to try something new every day it wasn't working. And a lot of business and running something is throwing something at a wall till it sticks. And that's the part that's hard. People think that entrepreneurship is having one great idea and it just blows up overnight and you're famous, Everybody watches the Gary Vaynerchuks online and watches the Mr. Beast online and thinks that, I'm going to do that and it's just going to happen today. But really, it's a lot of trial and error. So I kept trying. It wasn't working downtown. And then I had to ask myself a question. I think it was like, I remember one night I'm coming back home from the club at like 4 in the morning. I had an exam the next day. And I was like, man, I love what I'm doing and I'm passionate about the whole idea. But I hate my life. This is not fun. I don't want to do this anymore. And I had to ask myself, and there was somebody who was speaking earlier who said the greatest thing, they were like, the one thing you should do when you're an entrepreneur is love what you're doing. And I had to ask myself, what was I in love with? Was I in love with the money and with selling things? Was I in love? And some entrepreneurs are like that. They're in love with the formula. They're in love with finding what works. But I was somebody who was in love with the idea of teaching people through food. So then I shut everything down. I lost everything. At this point, my mother's telling me, like, what are you doing? I was like wasting my student loans on like buying burger packaging and all this type of stuff. And, I shut it all down. I closed down the kitchen. I put all my stuff in storage, and I completely built up from base, scratch, had nothing. I got evicted from my apartment downtown. I was living in and out of my car in my boyfriend's place. It was a mess. I'd quit my job trying to, make this dream happen. And I had to ask myself, what is it that I noticed that people were intrigued about? They were intrigued about the message behind the food. So I started going to schools and bringing these burgers to schools and talking to kids about equity, diversity, inclusion, and culture. And it really started to pick up steam. I started working with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and I even went all the way to Toronto this year teaching kids in the GTA about inclusion and equity, and why would you not eat this food if it wasn't in this form? Why is it only appealing to you when it looks like something you recognize? And I realized that I was in love with the message, and by being in love with the message and what I was doing, the success came with it. From that, on the off seasons, when there's no school around, I was asking myself, what should I do with myself? I need something else to do. So I sparked Egg Bunny, and Egg Bunny is the same idea and concept, except a little bit more breakfasty. We use the same bread that we have at Aphrodite's, and we just form them into little bunnies and put them in these little cups called burros. And the whole idea is about bringing joy to the city of Ottawa through food. Everything I've ever done is through food, and many times when I go to entrepreneurship events, it's always tech focused. So I love things like this, and shout out to Jen for getting this started, where it's not just tech focused, it's about those who want to start a business or have thought of starting a business. When I think back, my first business ever was when I was like 12, and I grew up with a single mom at home. And my mom was working in and out, day in and out, and I just wanted to help her. So I started selling cookies and Nigerian snacks to my classmates. And when we were asked that question earlier, when was your first sale? I remember my first sale being at like 13, of me selling like little, it's called Chin Chin, the snack that I was selling, but little Chin Chin snacks to my friends at school. And that's entrepreneurship. It's not about the business. It's not about what you're doing. It's about who you are. And you are going to fail. Like, I can't sit up here and be like, oh, it's going to be easy. No, babe. It's rough. It is rough. But it's in believing in yourself, not just the business. If I was here a year ago and you asked me, would you ever focus on anything outside of Aphrodite's? I would look at you and be like, blasphemy. Absolutely not. Would you ever start another business? Absolutely not. But you can't be married to your original idea. You have to pivot. Pivoting there's a quote that I love, and it says, the only thing that's constant in life is change, and great businesses change. And that is what launches you forward to success. Now, going back on my whole topic around networking, can somebody share with me the names of the 3 people they talked to and what they learned about them? And if you don't nominate yourselves, I will pick you out of the crowd because I work with kids. You here. Okay, there we go. Go ahead. What's your name, first of all?
So my name is Julian Hodge, and I spoke with one person, but I spoke with a guy named Victor, and he has he's a 4th-year student at U Ottawa, and he has a really cool business that I'm sure he could explain better than I can, but like off the 2-minute conversation, they seem to do a lot in terms of like manufacturing and like chemistry, and I mean, you can ask him to explain it more, but I believe it's called IGEM, and it's a like company, the Instagram, let me get the Instagram actually, just to give him a little shout out. It's IGEM_U Ottawa. So check them out on Instagram.
You go. You get a prize. Can everybody give Julian a round of applause, please? Is there anybody else who wants to try? Yeah, go ahead, Jazz. Here, you want to hand that down to Jazz? Go ahead, Jasmine.
Of course, I want to say Amal and her Todas Gems because they're an amazing business, as well as my friend Victor for his iGem U Ottawa, and then Violet, who doesn't have a business yet but is very interested and in 12th year in high school. So, starting young.
Thank you so much. Can we give her a round of applause, please? So the reason why I came back and I asked y'all to tell me something that you learned from someone is because when you're reaching out to people, remember how I said the most important thing about entrepreneurship is talking to as many people as possible? And sometimes that is not your strength. I will tell you, am I a chatterbox? If you can't tell, let me tell you, I am. But some people are not a chatterbox, you know? Some people struggle with that. And you have to work in these spaces on talking to as many people as possible. When you learn something as small as it may be, like, I have a dog. Like, this person has a dog, and the dog's name is, I don't know, Bruce, okay? Bruce the dog. When you email them and you say, hey, Paula, how are you? How's Bruce the dog? That person knows you're listening. That person knows you care. And it makes it easier for them to connect with you and to want to do things for you. I can think of so many times where just by actively listening to somebody and remembering their name and a little detail they told me, it led to a lifelong friendship or a business partnership or even just some advice. Because everybody, no matter how much money they have in their wallet or what they look like or who they are, everybody has something to offer you. And that was really the main point I wanted to get across today. Now, I was curious if any of you guys had any questions you wanted to ask me, because I'm not really the type to, because I work with kids a lot, I'm not really the type to sit up here and yap at you for a million years. So go ahead and ask me any questions if you want, or anything you want to know.
Back here. I'm going back here first. Who is it? Ah, here you go.
I was just curious, like, what was the process of starting your Canada restaurant that you're gonna open? Like, how did what led to that? What was the process of that? Like, what was the circumstances surrounding it?
So thanks, great question. What was your name? Edith. It's Edith?
Edith.
Edith?
A-L-I-F.
Elif. Oh, Elif. Can everybody give him a round of applause for asking that question, please? Thank you. So I shut my whole business down like I told you. I literally went back to square zero. And I remember I had no money in my bank account, and I think I begged my sister or something to send me $50 to be able to pay for there was a special promotion going on during Christmas time that year at the storage unit, and it was $30 for a storage of 5x5 space. So I put all my stuff in a 5x5 space, and I talked to everyone. I was like, look, I'm a struggling entrepreneur. I can't seem to find a space that works for me that I can get traction. For some reason, the things I'm doing is not working. Who do you know? So shout out to actually Startup Garage U Ottawa. I spoke to Kathleen Kemp, who is the head of Startup Garage U Ottawa, as I was a U Ottawa student. And she connected me with KRP, who are they run the business park out in Canada North. And they actually had a space that, because of COVID, was shut down. In their heyday in 2014, this company, Browns, they were running this big cafeteria with 10,000 people in the building eating there every single day. With COVID, there was nobody in the building, so they shut down. And this space, because it was used as a cafeteria prior to COVID, before COVID, it had been sitting empty and destitute with, honestly, I think thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, dishes, you name it. Materials were all sitting in there and collecting dust, and nobody wanted the space because it was in a corporate building. So they asked me, do you want this space? I said, yeah, I will take that. Thank you very much. And then I moved into there, and the kitchen in there had been there since 1973. So after removing all of the dust from 40 years ago off of all of the materials and things that was in there, I actually got really lucky and lucked out with a fantastic kitchen. But I wouldn't have got that if I didn't literally tell everybody I was failing. And on that, I think a lot of times, because we go on social media and we only see people's successes, we get really nervous about talking about when we sucked at something, you know what I mean, or when we failed at something. And I always make a joke that one day, when I'm make $1 million, I'm gonna write a book called I'm Blessing Day and I Failed. Talking about my failure is what actually got me the connection to be able to pivot over there. And I literally talked to everybody, about anybody who would listen. I would start crying, and it was like really embarrassing, like when I think about it now. But like, lots of blessings came out with it. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Felicia. This has been really, really interesting. I was wondering, when you were starting out...
Sorry, what's your name?
Oh, my name's Owen.
Everybody say hi, Owen. Thanks, Owen. Go ahead.
Thanks for that. I was just wondering, when you were starting out, or more recently, what's the worst piece of advice that you got?
The worst piece?
Yeah.
That's a good one. To quit. I think the worst piece of advice I ever got... Oh, that's hard because I've gotten some really bad advice from some people. That's a challenging question.
She's trying to make sure that I wasn't the one that told her.
No!
She's making sure, like, did Paula tell me this? Because I can't say this out loud.
I think the worst piece of advice I ever received was to delegate everything. I ended up spending, I think like this year, let me be so transparent. This year, I spent over $30,000 paying other people to do things. And because I was so desperate, I hired anybody. And I actually got the opposite advice as well, but the person who told me delegate as many things as possible, they were louder. So I listened to them more. But somebody said to me, hire slow, fire fast. That was a really great advice somebody gave me, and I didn't follow up with that. I spent a lot of time trying to give people time and energy when I was burning my resources, and that was my biggest regret, is that I went too big and I didn't go lean. So if you're going to start a business, stay as lean as possible. There's a great book that actually Miss Paula gave me, and you guys don't know Sarah, but Sarah, she used to start a summer company. The two of them gave me a book called Profit First, and that book changed my entire perspective on business and on the financial side, because let me just out myself. I failed grade 11 math twice. That was a treacherous year. So math and finances is not my strong suit. You know what I mean? So yeah, shout out Logan Katz. But because it wasn't my strong suits, I made a lot of big financial mistakes. And even though those are not the biggest mistakes you can necessarily make, it really impacts you and your stress and everything. So the worst advice I ever got was delegate everything. There's some things you can do yourself. Yeah. Thank you so much, Owen. I really appreciate it. Yeah, grade 11 math was so tough. Oh my God. Anyways, they're going around.
One more? Where are we going? That's okay. Last question. There you are. Start with your name.
Hello, my name is
Hi.
Divine. So I'm kind of curious in how you're able to juggle the two businesses that you have. Because usually, whenever you talk to people, people say you have to concentrate on one thing because you want to put all your mind and your resources on one thing. But now you're able to have the Aphrodis and the one that you open in Canada. I'm just curious as to how to use your resources and like split it into two to scale the two of them. Because that's something that people struggle with, and I'm kind of curious in that.
Thanks for that question. So the thing about Aphrodis was I didn't realize the reason why Aphrodis was making me go crazy and I was losing hair was because I didn't realize I was running 3 businesses in one. So Aphrodis had 3 services. We did our Diversity Lunch and Learns, which was our main business. We did catering, which was a secondary business that we had going on in there. And we also made our bread custom at home. And those were 3 business streams that Aphrodis was doing all on its own. And I didn't see them as 3 businesses. I saw them as the one business, which, to my detriment, wasn't the right way to manage it. Aphrodis as a brand, and this is on the whole branding and marketing side, over the last year, I've learned so much about branding and marketing. What made Aphrodis was its diversity and education. And I think that, yeah, you should focus on one thing. And that business in itself should solely be focused on diversity and education. And what I did was take what it was doing, add a few elements and tweak it to be a little bit sharper, change the colors, and moved one of the operations that it had going to something else. So I don't know if that's a clear answer, but basically I divided Aphrodis in 2 and just named the other part something else. A really big thing with Aphrodis 2 was I have seasons. So I'm really lucky that I can really operate Egg Bunny in the summer because Aphrodis is practically dead in the summertime. All my schools, everybody's on break, so I'm not really doing anything. And I have to pay my rent when Aphrodis is not functioning. So I was like, how am I going to pay my rent and I hate working for people. Like, ain't nobody gonna tell me when I have to get up in the morning. Absolutely not. So I was like, I'm not gonna get a job. I'm gonna start something new and something fresh. And once the entrepreneurship bug bites you, I genuinely believe you can do anything you set your mind to. And then stress, all it does is limit execution. You know, some people are really great at managing stress, and they can push through it and it'll happen. And some are not as great as pushing through and having it happen. But it's, somebody said something, I think I read or I watched a video and it was like, the stress, $1,000 problems and $10,000 problems have the same amount of stress. It's the same amount of stress. So if you're gonna go through it for one company and you can, if you're going to go through it for one company, it's going to be the same stress for the other company. And I think so many times as people, because of how our brains work, we think, oh, one or two things, like, it's just so much, it's too much. But in retrospect, when you look back at it, it's not that much. But I don't know if that was a clear answer. I kind of went off a little bit, but I hope you got what I was trying to say. Anyways, the one thing I want you guys to take from this conversation is talk to everybody. Don't be ashamed of failing. Failure is cool. And yeah, thank you so much for hearing me.
Round of applause, everyone. Blessing.